everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the long and winding Royal Road. This is episode 7. This is actually our first episode of 2021, and we're not recording in 2021. I tend to record these things about a month in advance, so it's still 2020. But by the time you listen to this, it'll be 2021, and hopefully 2021 is going to be a lot better than 2020. The vaccine's out there. I'm going to get vaccinated when I can. There's a priority. People are ahead of me in the line. That's fine. I'm okay with that. But maybe it's going to be okay. But this is episode 7. And, we say about the long and winding Road that it's a look back at the All Japan Pro Wrestling era of the 1990s. But we're going to stretch that a little bit because we're going to look at a match from the year 2000. But it's okay because it's before what we call the Exodus, before Misawa takes 99% of the roster with him to form Pro Wrestling Noah. So it's still, that era, the Four Pillars era. And joining me today to talk about this match is the person who picked this match is Ed Kody from Pod Van Dam. And Ed, how are you today?
I'm doing great, but now I feel the pressure because I knew it was the first episode of 2021, but now I feel like it's up to us because 2020 was so bad. We got to start off 2021 well. Like, it's a lot of pressure.
It is, I suppose. I don't know. Like, I don't think like magically January is going to make everything less shitty in the world. I imagine hopefully I'm hoping for by the time June rolls around that it's going to be a little less shitty than 2020. But
I'm hoping by June I can go to a wrestling show and feel safe, and that's all I'm really.
Well, I'm back in North America, so I don't know if I'd feel safe going back to an independent wrestling show in Toronto as opposed to going to a show in Cork and Hall or, Shinkiba First Ring or Budokan Hall or Sumo Hall, wherever. Like Japan's a wonderful place to watch professional wrestling live. North America, not so much. I'll be honest, I tend to call it, what I call wrestling matches in, independent wrestling matches, in North America, Ed. I call it Darwin's waiting room. Because you see some of the people surrounding you, like not everyone's like this, but I'm going to say, to be fair, maybe a good 50% is like, yeah, missing a chromosome here or there, some of you people, I don't know. Somewhere along the way, their social skills got severely stunted. Like Darwinism for just how their personalities evolved just didn't take. So Darwin's waiting room. That's what I call going to an independent show sometimes.
It's so good.
But if if you're offended by that, then maybe there's people say WH shouldn't say stuff like that. That's not nice. It's like, hey, if you took offense to that, you should look at yourself rather than be blaming me about anything I'm saying.
Yeah, I think it speaks more to you as a person if that's offensive.
Yes, because if you're like me, normal, and you also recognize that going to an independent wrestling show in North America is like going to Darwin's waiting room, then you're probably normal. You probably got all your social skills intact and evolved and things like that. But I don't want to get into this sociology kind of a discussion. We're here to talk about professional wrestling, which means we are stunted in our own ways. Here, Ed. But let's talk about you first. Let the listeners know a bit about yourself. You are part of a group of people who do a podcast called Pod Van Dam. Obviously, it's a homage to Rob Van Dam.
Yeah, it actually started out. There was this podcast called What a Maneuver that was going over the Monday Night Wars, before Brian and Vinny, I'm even sure. And then I asked the question that no one else had for obvious reasons. We're like, why is no one doing this for ECW on Sci-Fi? So we started doing that, and then we found out nobody cares about it, and it switched over to now we cover the news of wrestling Twitter for the week. And it's been a fun one this year. It's been great. Really uplifting.
Well, I'm looking at your Twitter account, and I'm looking at the bio here. Welcome to the cesspool.
Yeah. Which was very apt this year. It was
covering the week that was on wrestling Twitter and new episodes every Monday. And I'm just wondering, why would you do that to yourself?
I actually really love it. And I think that speaks to me as a person where I don't know, these people are fascinating to me. Rover and Bix and like people that are big on like it's such a niche of a niche, you know what I mean? And it's like I don't know, it's very fascinating until this year where it became very sad.
It's wrestling Twitter. You know, when the world is normal is a kind of a terrible place to be on. Nowadays, it's just at the height of the pandemic, it was just like wow, terrible news after terrible news during the height of speaking out, terrible news after terrible news, and just some horrible takes, and mainly from people within the wrestling industry, which is really, really sad to say. But what is a typical week for you, like you and your partners?
We go over, we start over with the cesspool segment. We talk about the news of wrestling Twitter, which hopefully always involves dunking on Cody Hall. We're pretty big fans of that. And like there's things that just keep coming up. Like this whole year has been really smooth brain takes on COVID and politics. So that's been fun. And then we have at the end we have like a call-in segment where we put out like a question of the week and people call in. And then like we have this one regular caller that's very weird named Tyler's dad. And he's like this mysterious dude from West Virginia that despite being from West Virginia is very woke. It's pretty weird. He's been calling in for like a year and a half now. And that's been pretty bizarre every week.
What are you trying to say about the people of West Virginia? I mean, I'm Canadian, so I don't know. But
I'm sure I'm sure the people listening to this from West Virginia are fine, but it's the South pretty much. It's like you wouldn't expect someone from West Virginia to be calling in and like quoting the Tribe Called Quest and talking about like healthcare for everybody. And
well, I mean, I think people all across the world, let alone southern United States, like you have your people who are I guess fit a stereotype, and you have the people who will pleasantly surprise you. So that's great that Tyler's dad is one of the pleasantly surprising people. That's really nice to hear. But yeah, so let's talk a bit about your fandom and like how did you get started with wrestling in general, and like how did you become a fan of All Japan Pro Wrestling?
Okay, so wrestling in general, we got cable when I was a small boy in 1997, and I put on an episode of Raw, and I watched this strange man in a brown costume with a leather mask and a guy that was like bald and drinking beer and reminding me of my Uncle Rick be mean to him. And then later that man came out dressed as a hippie, and I was like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, and I should devote a large portion of my life to it. So, yeah, ever since then, it was like, I watched WWF and WCW and all that, and then when that went away, I like got internet, and then I became more hip to other things. But All Japan came when WWE and TNA weren't doing it for me anymore, and I got into New Japan around the time like Nakamura, I think, came back from Mexico and like got that big run. And I was just searching out whatever I could, and I was searching out Minoru Suzuki matches, and I found Suzuki and Akiyama from Noah. And then that got me into Jun Akiyama, and then that got me into 90s All Japan.
Okay, so that being said, like you're the one who I think you contacted me in the DMs. You wanted to do something about specifically Jun Akiyama, but I think you wanted, because I think you had heard the Misawa biography episode, and you were like, oh, I'd be interested in doing like the Akiyama one. But I had already kind of like slotted some of these kind of biography episodes with certain people, so I said, oh, but we could, that's already taken. I'm sad to say, but maybe we could do a Jun Akiyama match, and you picked this one. And tell us which match we're going to talk about today, Ed.
We are talking about Jun Akiyama versus Mitsuharu Misawa from February 27th of 2000.
Yeah, so like I said, we're stretching the kind of the boundaries of the show, where we're not in the 1990s anymore, we're in the 2000s. But like I said, it's before the exodus, before Pro Wrestling Noah pretty much decimates the roster of All Japan Pro Wrestling. And let's talk a bit about Jun Akiyama. What is it about him that captures, like, I guess, your imagination?
I think, like, it's, I've got to him first in Noah, and, like, the aesthetic of him just being kind of a bastard man in Noah, I really liked. And when I went back and, saw him in All Japan and researched that, I kind of like that he's like the fifth Beatle, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I think he's better. Man, I'm going to get heat for this. I think he's the best out of all of them. Like, Jun Akiyama just hits for me, and I don't really know why.
So you're saying, like, of the four pillars of Misawa, Kawada, Kobashi, Taue, and maybe including even Stan Hansen, that Jun Akiyama is the best. Is your favorite wrestler of all of them? You think he's the best wrestler of all? Like, what is it about Akiyama that you think makes him better than, say, Kento Kobashi?
I think it's because when I got into Akiyama, I got to see like old man Akiyama first, and it reminds me a lot of like when you go back and watch like '90s Jumbo Tsuruta, where he's just like this old man that beats the shit out of people, and I really, really got into that. And then Akiyama I like a lot because he's very much like an amazing tag team guy, you know. And like I really, really, really love tag team wrestling, so I definitely leaned more towards Jun Akiyama when I was like discovering all this stuff.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, like we can talk about a bit about his background. I want to talk a little bit about kind of like the way the company is at this time. So, just for a bit of background and context, like we have to keep in mind that Giant Baba had passed away the previous year on January 31st, 1999. And then Misawa had, been elevated within the company as being the president and the booker of the company. So he took over like 2 of the 3 roles that Giant Baba had in the company, but he didn't take over the most important role really in the grand scheme of things. And that's the owner. And that role went to Giant Baba's widow, Motoko Baba. And, the problem there is that Motoko Baba and Mitsuharu Misawa hated each other. They did not get along. And so, Misawa right off the bat, is fighting kind of this uphill battle to kind of like, see his vision through with the company as president and booker. And he also is the ace of the company still. He's still like the main event guy. He's the one being counted on to carry the main events and put his body through a lot of punishment. And one thing we have to keep in mind is like, even at this stage in his career, he's thinking about like, okay, me, Kawada, Taue, Kobashi, we're really banged up. We've been banged up for the last 5 years, pretty much. And we need to think about the future of this company, of this promotion. And like the person like that was obviously going to take over Misawa's spot as the future ace of this company. Like at this point, like Kobashi is pretty much, Kenta Kobashi is pretty much going to be the guy after Misawa. And probably like Toshiaki Kawada is still going to be like the 1B, you know what I mean? And like Misawa is probably thinking in the next 3 years, he's going to be the 1C. And Kobashi's going to be the 1A, because that's what happens in Noah, right? Like Kobashi eventually becomes the 1A during that massive title run he has with the GHC heavyweight title. So, but the guy who's going to take over in about 5 years, 6 years time is Akiyama. And with him, you can see like, the push coming for people like Takao Omori, for Yoshiro Takayama, for Manokea Mossman, who later become Taiyokea. So it's these people. And you know that Misawa's looking at the junior heavyweight guys he has in the company thinking, oh my God, I can now probably challenge New Japan's supremacy in the junior heavyweight wrestling scene in Japan with the guys I have, Marufuji, Kenta, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Takashi Sugiura. All these people are waiting in the wings. So he's wanting to make that happen. He's going to, face himself slowly down the card, because that's what happened before him with Jumbo, right? And that's what happened before Jumbo with Baba, and all the people of Baba's generation gets phased down. So, but he's got to deal with all this political backlash and strife with Mrs. Baba. So we got to keep that in mind here. And like when we talk about kind of the background of this match, any thoughts about like that kind of situation there, Ed?
So I have a question. So at this time, like the time this match happens, Motoko Baba and Misawa not at all getting along, right?
No.
It's just so mind-blowing, because like when I got into like Noah and All Japan, reading about the Exodus and like the Observer and everything, it was just like, can you imagine if that happened today? Like if there was just a mass walkout of like WWE, like they were just sick of Vince's shit and they were just gonna go start their own company.
Well, I mean, it could happen. That would be amazing to see, but not, they still hold like, the monopoly in North America, even with, the success of AEW, you still have, Vince controls wrestling in the mainstream, consciousness of America and Canada and pretty much most of the world as well. But with that would be interesting to see. But Japan is a lot different, because you'll see a lot of people in the history of Japanese wrestling break off from their promotions and create like their own groups. And this before Misawa did this with Pro Wrestling Noah, you had Tenryu did it with Super World Sports, which later became WAR, and you had Shin Hashimoto form 01, and tons of other things like all the stuff with the UWFI and Pancras, and maybe not Pancras, rings and all that stuff with the Kira Maeda and what have you. It's very, very common to see like splinter groups created in Japan. But we talk about Akiyama. So this is 2000. So 8 years earlier, he made his debut in 1992, and right away, like people have said, like Dave Meltzer has said, like Akiyama is one of those guys who took to wrestling right away, was an excellent pro wrestler from the very start of his career. The only, like, one of the other people that was like that in Dave Meltzer's opinion was Kurt Angle. And, like, you can see a lot of parallels with, like, kind of the evolution of Akiyama as a wrestler to, like, Kurt Angle's evolution from the time he debuted on TV and to, like, the time he becomes, like, a megastar by, I guess, around the same time in 2000.
Yeah, isn't the other person Meltzer says, like, isn't it Segura from Noah? Like, all of these dudes just took to wrestling super quick and understood it, like, right from the beginning.
It might be Segura. I usually think it's I always hear, like, it's Akiyama and Kurt Angle. So, that's saying a lot that, someone who has followed wrestling and covered wrestling to the extent that Dave Meltzer has is like, comparing, like, Kurt Angle and Akiyama, like, together as guys who understand professional wrestling, from the early starts of their career. So, one thing that really helped make Akiyama, like a star in All Japan, and like eventually, like the fans were going to take to him as being the new ace of the company, was that he was paired with, two of the four pillars as in regular tag teams. The first was, of course, Mitsuharu Misawa, his opponent in this match. And the second would be the partner he had at this time, which was Kenta Kobashi. And they formed the awesome tag team, one of my favorite tag teams in All Japan history, and that's the team of Burning.
Do you like that version of Burning more than the comeback version of Burning when Akiyama came back to All Japan?
Oh, I love that faction. When that, like when those guys left Noah and went back to All Japan, and like, the tag team of it was Go Shiozaki and Jun Akiyama was the new Burning. No, I don't, because they didn't have like the chance to be a dominant tag team and have like the kind of matches that, Kobashi and Akiyama had as a tag team. Like look who they faced. Like Akiyama and Kobashi faced against Misawa and Ogawa, against the Holy Demon Army, against different foreigner tandems, including the people that they lost the tag team titles to. So at this point, like a week before, Kobashi and Akiyama are the world tag team champions in All Japan. And on February 20th, in a match in Kobe, Akiyama and Kobashi lost the world tag team titles to the team of Vader and Steve Williams. What a hell of a team that is, right? And so that sets up, this match for the Triple Crown title match that, no, sorry, this is not for the Triple Crown title match. This is a semi-main event of a card at Budokan Hall. The Triple Crown champion is Vader, and he's going to face Kenta Kobashi on the same card immediately after this match that we're going to talk about. But I want to talk a little bit about their kind of singles match history, Misawa and Akiyama, Ed. So their first singles match against each other was on September 6th, 1997. So 5 years, into Akiyama's career, he's getting a Triple Crown shot against Mitsuharu Misawa. And of course, he comes up short in that. Do you know when their second match was?
Second match was in January of 98, right?
Yes. And that again was another Triple Crown title match, which, like Akiyama lost, of course. And then their third match was on April 18th, 1998. This was the Champions Carnival Finals, and Misawa beat Akiyama in that. But I mean, it's awesome that Akiyama got to the finals, but he came up short in that match. And so, we're coming up on their fourth singles match in All Japan, and Akiyama has never beaten Misawa.
Yeah, Akiyama's got like a real Hiroki Goto thing, you know what I mean? Where he just can't win the big one.
Well, I mean, it's deliberate, right? So
yeah.
It's kind of like, teasing the fans, like, oh, he's almost there. He's almost there. He's almost going to get that win. They take it away from him. Of course, he's won matches against, other people in tag matches, and like people of his generational peers. He's beaten them, but he has yet to have that one victory over Misawa, which is like the win to have, because regardless of who's the Triple Crown champion at this time, Ed, like Misawa's the ace of the company.
Yeah, Masawa's that dude, and you gotta at this time you have to. I mean, yeah, that win would be huge for him. But yeah, that's what I love about Japanese wrestling is like they're building towards it for like 3 years is what he's getting closer and closer every time.
He's getting closer. So their first singles match again, 1997. So now we're in 2000. So yeah, 3 years. Akiyama has never beaten Misawa. So that's the backdrop for this match. And let's talk about this card that this match is on. This is the semi-main event of the day 11 of the 2000 Excite Series tour. It's being held at the kind of like the home of All Japan Pro Wrestling, the Nippon Budokan. The attendance that's listed here is 16,300 people. I don't know how accurate that would be, because Japanese companies have this tendency to lie about their attendance, especially at this period. So I can see probably it's maybe over 10,000 people in here, but is it 16,300? Who knows? It could be a legit attendance, but yeah.
It's crazy how every Japanese company does that, because I follow Hita pretty closely, and I've seen shows where they've been there's 80 people here, and it's there's 30 and I'm being generous.
Well, I hope there's not 80 people during the pandemic at Hita's show or anything like that. That'd be terrible.
Hita is one of the only ones running no crowd still, and I don't know, it's all right.
I mean, that's probably the safest thing to do. I mean, I wasn't going to go to any shows during the pandemic, even in Japan, where they, seemingly they have it a bit better under control than in North America. But I never thought going to a wrestling show was worth, risking my health. But anyways, let's talk about this card first. So, the first match on the card is a tag team match. It's Kentaro Shiga and Yoshinobu Kanemaru, the other members of Burning, and they defeat the team of Makoto Hashi and Masao Inoue. Next up is a 6-man tag team match. Some familiar names here: Haruka Eigen, Masanobu Fuchi, who's still going strong today, and Tsuyoshi Kikuchi, and they take on the team of Mitsuo Momota, Rusha Kimura, and Takeshi Morishima. So this is kind of like the comedy old guys, 6-man tag mixed in with some younger guys. Number 3 match, tag team match, Daisuke Ikeda from Battle Arts and teaming with Manukea Mossman, and they take on the team of Naomichi Marufuji and Yoshinari Agawa, who are still wrestling strong to this day in Pro Wrestling Noah. 4th match, tag team match, Takao Omori, Yoshihiro Takayama, No Fear. They defeat the team of Jun Izumida and Taman Honda. The 5th match is a 6-man tag team match, Akira Taue, Stan Hansen, and Toshiaki Kawada taking on the team of Giant Kamala, Johnny Smith, and Steve Williams. Just to clarify, it's Giant Kim Allah, not Kamala. So it's the same gimmick, just different people. And then this leads us to our 6th match, which would be the match we're going to talk about, Akiyama versus Misawa. But following that is a Triple Crown title match. It's Kenta Kobashi, who defeats Vader, the Triple Crown champion, to win the Triple Crown from him in 19 minutes and 49 minutes. 49 seconds. I'm sure someone's going to pick this match down the line. That's a title change, and Kobashi I think he lost. I can't remember who Vader beat. Vader beat Misawa maybe, and then Kobashi defeated Vader. Sorry, I don't have my notes for that. But anyways, that's the card for this show. And there's a thing I just want to talk quickly about the match guide ratings for Cage Match. So this is rated 9.48 based on 66 votes from Cage Match. Dave Meltzer gave it 4.25 stars in Wrestling Observer. So the Kobashi Vader match was rated 7.87 based on 22 votes. So more people watched this match seemingly on Cage Match. I don't have the Wrestling Observer rating for this, but I can't imagine Dave rating this less than 4.5 stars.
I read the notes wrong at first, and I thought that the 6-man tag got a 9.48 and was 4.25. And I was like, wow, that's got to be the highest rated Giant Kamala match of all time. Like, this thing must be a banger.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that the chemistry Giant Kamala, Johnny Smith, and Steve Williams had would get that kind of a rating from Dave Meltzer? But no, you read it wrong. It's Akiyama versus Misawa that gets the 4.25 star rating for this. I'll talk about my own rating for this as we get closer to the end of the podcast. But let's go into the match itself. We'll start off with the entrances. Akiyama comes out first to his awesome theme with the awesome name of Shadow Explosion.
You know what I noticed when he came out is that awesome ring jacket.
Oh yeah, the blue one. The blue.
Yeah, what did you think of that?
It's awesome. I like Kobashi has his orange one, and when you see them as a tag team, it's like their aesthetics their aesthetics are very similar in the type of gear they're wearing and their jackets. But like the great thing about All Japan at this time is that everyone's color coded.
Yes, I was gonna ask. I was to say, I don't know if anybody's asked you this before. How you feel about color coded All Japan? But I love it.
Oh, I think it's great because you can easily distinguish who is who and remember who is who based on their colors that they wear. And like I think that's something that could be brought back into wrestling in general. Like, I mean, All Japan still kind of does that. Like Kento Miyahara is, associated with red, maybe he's the only one who has a lot of people wear black in All Japan. So maybe it's something that needs to be brought back. Someone needs to be wearing yellow and like orange and purple and shit like that.
Evolution's blue, or is that just my brain that's associated blue with like Suwama and all those dudes?
Yeah, but like Suwama's gear isn't blue. His gear is
okay.
Black,
yeah, you're right. I don't know why I think Evolution is blue.
Well, I think they're like their t-shirts and their logo is blue, but like Suwama's gear is usually black with some trims to it, but like it's usually black. So it's something that could be brought back. I do prefer like people having distinct gear, like being color coded. I think it really helps fans like latch on and identify wrestling, especially if you're new to a promotion. Yeah,
it definitely helps.
Okay, and then of course coming out next is Mitsuharu Misawa to his awesome classic theme of Spartan X. Now, Ed, which one do you prefer, Shadow Explosion or Spartan X?
Shadow Explosion,
of course, right? Like, but yeah. you gotta say like Spartan X is like you start listening to it and it's like you kind of like snap your fingers to it and stuff like that. It's really catchy.
I think Akiyama's is the second best theme in Japanese wrestling history.
Okay, I'm gonna say that in wrestling in general, I think it's probably like I think Liger has the best theme. Like Jushin Thunder Liger is just a classic. So
I was thinking Hayabusa's.
Hayabusa's is really good too. Yeah, definitely. There's so many great themes. A lot of the really, really great themes. I feel I'm biased, of course, is in ProRes, but there you go. I got to talk about the cornermen. So for Akiyama, in his corner are his fellow Burning members, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and who's wearing this awesome black Burning T-shirt. I kind of want that. Next time I go to Japan, maybe I'm gonna try to track that down. And Kentaro Shiga. Misawa's cornermen are Yoshinari Gawa, his regular tag team partner, and one of his apprentices, one Naomichi Marufuji. It's really cool when you go back to watch matches in this era, see who's like doing, who's cornering people and the ring boys. And the ring boys for this match are Kenta and Takeshi Rikio, which is kind of cool to see.
Those jumpsuits are dope too. I'd like one of those.
Oh yeah, I mean tracksuits are a staple of Japanese pro wrestling in every company. So I think it's a recent thing where like companies are saying, hey, maybe the fans, the marks want to wear like our tracksuits and pretend that they're part of our company and we can milk them for more money.
It's genius. I would definitely wear it and pretend to be an All Japan young boy.
Well, yeah, I don't think I'd ever do that myself. like they're cool to look at, like, but would I wear one of the tracksuits? No.
What about for around the house? Like just comfort?
No, I mean? It's like belt marks. Like these guys who bring like title belts to like shows. I hate those people because like it's like okay, you're at this independent show and you have like the WCW 1996 United States title replica. Why?
You should have to defend it.
I think every wrestler who sees a belt mark should challenge them for the belt. That should be the rule. And if they lose, they have to give up, this thing that they spent like $1,000 on to some indie guy who's also like, driving for UPS or something like that. That should be the rule. That maybe people would stop bringing their stupid replica belts to shows. But anyways, I don't want to get too negative. I want to get down this road. But let's get into the match itself. They start with this feeling out process, and they kind of quickly transition into an exchange of forearms and elbows to one another's faces. So it gets on, like it gets to the like the heated point really quickly in this match, Ed.
Yeah, and I like that it, like you think it's not, you know what I mean? Because that feeling out process, you're like, all right, it's going to be a slow build. And then it's like, definitely not. They trick you. You go right into it. It's nice.
Yeah, like what do you think about like the kind of the stiff shots in All Japan?
I love it a lot. I love no-selling stiff shots. We're going to get to that later. I love a good no-sell. Yeah, I like dudes hitting each other. It makes wrestling better, for sure.
Yeah, you don't like all the flips and like pretending and like people pretending that they're they're lazy and all the comedy wrestling and stuff like that.
See, this is the thing. I love comedy wrestling when it's done right. Like I think Kikutaro is one of the best wrestlers in the world because he very rarely has bad matches with people because he's good at it. So I think if you're good at comedy, it works. But if you're not, I don't want to see you try it. I'd rather see you really just hitting each other in the face pretty hard.
My thing with wrestling is like listen, just make me believe like I'm not watching something fake. Once like people start thinking I'm gonna embrace the fakeness of professional wrestling, it's like it's not for me. Like if people enjoy it, that's awesome. It's just like I can't get into it. But anyways, continuing with this match, Misawa and Akiyama start a sequence of going for moves, but having each move countered until finally Misawa catches Akiyama with a drop kick that sends them to the outside. And it's the sequence is like, just kind of shows you and tells the audience, like, these guys know each other. They used to be tag partners and they've been rivals since Akiyama left to join up with Kobashi. So, it kind of plays into the story that like, like they have a history with one another.
Yeah, and if you watch like all three matches like in a row, like a trilogy, right? Like all the matches leading up to it, you can see like Akiyama starts to get Misawa like more and more every time.
It's kind of plays into this idea that like if wrestling is a real sport, that Akiyama has learned from all his previous matches with Misawa, and that maybe Akiyama has been watching tapes and thinking, okay, I gotta watch out for this. He does this a lot, and when I do this, he does this. So it's really great because it makes you feel like you're actually watching something real.
Yeah, they're telling stories out there.
They are, and that's not a bad thing. It's
no.
A good thing.
Like and they mean it. It's not like when Vince McMahon says we tell stories, pal. It's like they're telling stories and they're good stories.
Yeah, I mean, well, like Vince McMahon thinks he's running a soap opera, not a professional sporting contest. But anyways, Misawa follows up with an elbow from the apron to the floor. They go back in the ring, and Misawa continues to assault Akiyama with a flying lariat, a jumping senton, another elbow to the face. And then at this point, Misawa decides, to slow the pace down a bit, and he locks in this really, like solid-looking rear chin lock.
Yeah, earlier, right, there's this spot where Akiyama does a dive at Misawa, and Misawa just basically catches him and throws it like a big, like, fuck you toss off of him, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, again, it's like they know each other
so
well. So it's really, it's like this thing where like, Akiyama is the younger guy, the young gun gunning for, the established gunfighter in Misawa. He's like the sheriff of the town, and like Akiyama's like, I want to be the new sheriff in the town. And so like, but Misawa's like, no, young man, you can go get fucked because I'm still got a lot of fight left in me. So it's it's that kind of struggle, this kind of classic dynamic struggle between the senpai in Misawa, who's a senior, and the kohai in Jun Akiyama, who's like the younger man.
It's just cool because like, that's really dismissive, right? Misawa just throws him off of him, but then Akiyama does it later to him, like with that crossbody, where Akiyama just throws him to the side.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to like
so
those
good.
kind of spot stuff. Yeah, it's again, it's the story of this match. Like they know each other so well. From here, Misawa gets Akiyama into a neutral corner where he just starts waylaying him with these elbows to the face, and then he switches to elbows to the back of Akiyama's neck. So he's setting him up. He's setting him up for a variety of like his finishes, including the Tiger Driver, 91, or maybe even his dreaded face lock, which also goes after the neck. So it's part of Misawa's regular strategy is to target people's like neck and head to set up for like variety of his finishers.
Yeah, it's cool because like I was watching this match earlier, like today. And my girlfriend who knows nothing about wrestling was watching it, and she was very much like, why do these? Because her whole thing was like Misawa and Akiyama don't look tough. She said they look like high school teachers, and I kind of get what she means. But then as Misawa starts like working next, and like she kind of got it. She's like, all right, which like that's cool. Like somebody doesn't even understand wrestling at all is like understood the story of this match.
I think. People in Western culture, like when they think about professional wrestling, like they're conditioned to think like you have to be like, jacked. You have to be, shredded to be considered a professional wrestler. That's the way, the sport has gone since the 1980s, really. So, even to this day, like we have a lot of people with different body types, but, the prevailing idea, especially in the WWE, is that you have to have like a 6-pack or an 8-pack. You have to have like massive shoulders and biceps to be considered a top star in professional wrestling. But in Japan, it's never been that way. Let's be honest, steroid culture has not necessarily been as prevalent. It does not to saying it doesn't exist in Japan. Of course it does. It exists in every form of professional wrestling in any country, but it never took off to the extent that it did in North America.
Except with Zeus.
Well, I said, it exists. I'm just saying it's not to the extent that you see. And I don't know that Zeus takes steroids. Like you shouldn't slander a great man like Zeus.
Slander. I think it's so cool that he does. I'm gonna say.
Well, let's disclaimer this, Ed. Like you don't know that he does. Neither do I. You're assuming. You're making an assumption there.
But if he does, I think it's cool. And I think
if he does,
cool,
I'll say this: if he does, I wouldn't be surprised. But that could be natural. I don't know. He spends he has his own gym. So he could be like there every day. You don't know. Neither do I. But back to the match. Jun Akiyama fights back against Misawa, but can't sustain his offense or get an advantage on him. That is, like you mentioned this, that is until he catches Misawa, who's doing this diving elbow from the second rope. And then Akiyama catches him and drives his face into the mat. And it's great. It's like, okay, now it's Akiyama's turn to fuck up Misawa.
Yeah, and you see, like, this is the moment Akiyama, like, it clicks with him, and he's got momentum on his side, and it's, I love this whole story. It's so good.
So from here, Akiyama hits his jumping knee. He has a great jumping knee. This is very, it's very different from Jumbo Tsuruda's, but it's obviously paying homage a bit to Jumbo, who like none of the 4 pillars really do a jumping knee. So it's really great to see Akiyama kind of bring this staple of a move back into the main event scene of All Japan. And then this jumping knee actually sends Misawa out to the floor. From here, Akiyama joins Misawa on the floor, but Misawa is able to reverse his fortune. He Irish whips Jun Akiyama into the guardrails and runs in to follow up. But Akiyama is able to catch him with a drop toe hold that sends Misawa throat first into the guardrail. And my God, this must have hurt. Like,
did you see how it bent? Like, it bent the guardrail.
It bent the guardrail. I missed that detail. Well, hey, they're not fucking around when they use guardrail spots in Japan, especially in All Japan Pro Wrestling. From here, Akiyama decides to fuck up Misawa even more. He carries him into a fireman carry, and from that position, he tosses Misawa chin first into the guardrail, which frightens a family in the front row. I don't know if you saw the reaction of the mother and the young man and the young boy, but they were like cringing, and I think they were legitimately fearing for Misawa's health and safety.
Mom was questioning bringing your children to this event.
It's not like it's a death match with like glass light tubes or anything like that. It's just, people just hitting each other really, really hard. Like obviously the dad is a huge fan and maybe the mom is too. And like they want their son to love, Kings Road style as much as they do.
How could you not? How could you not after this match?
Well, I assume you don't have children right now, Ed.
No, I do not.
But when you have children, like I assume you're going to be taking them to professional wrestling shows when it's safe to do so.
Yes. Yeah. I guess I'll try to.
Now, are you going to take them to shows that feature more straight ahead wrestling, or are you going to take them to deathmatch wrestling?
See, I don't know. The problem is I'm from Ohio, so our main company here is AIW, and I don't know that I would want to take a child to that. So I'd have to find some shindy and see how they make them dig wrestling from the lowest level to see if they really like it.
Are you suggesting that AIW is an outlaw mud show?
I would never.
I don't know. I don't know.
If you're listening, I would never say that.
I honestly don't know because I don't know if I can't remember ever watching an AIW show, so I can't say. Did they have death matches?
It's in a bar.
In a bar, okay.
Yeah, they have death matches. At the Collective, they did a barbed wire match. So, yeah.
It sounds like an outlaw mud show to me. Like Big Japan for wrestling and Freedoms in Japan are outlaw mud shows. I guess, GCW, AIW, outlaw mud shows. I just like that term. I don't say it with the same disdain that Jim Cornette does. I just say it because it sounds funny. But anyways, let's go back to Akiyama versus Misawa. Not an outlaw mud show match. Akiyama follows up the assault to Misawa with kicks to Misawa's back, and this drives Misawa's chest into the rails. And he includes a jumping boot, from the apron to Misawa's back, which is just obviously, as I said before, Misawa's, kind of strategy is to attack Akiyama's neck and head and to set up for one of the Tiger Drivers maybe. But also you have to keep in mind that Akiyama's finisher, one of his finishers is the Exploder Suplex and the wrist clutch Exploder Suplex. So, and that's obviously targeting the head and neck as well. So that's what, he's trying to soften up Misawa's, body parts to set up for one of these moves. He follows up with several elbows to the back of Misawa's neck while Misawa is draped on the apron, which leads into this amazing jumping knee drop to the back of Misawa's head, which I just oh man, Misawa, he doesn't have to do any of this stuff, Ed. You know what I mean? But he does. He doesn't have to take any of these bumps, but he does.
He's chose to let this man put his knee on the back of his head and drive him face first into a rail.
Because you have to keep in mind, Misawa is the booker, and he's put this match together. He's the president of the company. He's signing Akiyama's check. So, but Akiyama, again, this is the great thing about wrestling is I don't have to take care of my boss. I just have to, he's going to want me to beat the shit out of him. So I'm going to beat the shit out of my boss. It's you talk about Steve Austin. Oh, everyone, lived out their fantasy through Steve Austin beating up Vince McMahon. Well, Akiyama, I would say Akiyama beat up Misawa a lot stiffer than Steve Austin ever beat up, Vince McMahon,
I would say aside from that one bump Vince does to the table on his spine, Misawa
one big bump, big deal. Anyway, from here, Akiyama then does a kind of Terry Funk-like pile driver to Misawa to the blue mats outside, and they're cushioned, but they're not that thick. Ed. These blue mats are pretty thin. They're kind of more there for the aesthetics, I believe.
Yeah, and this is just a transition spot. This is just a thing they wanted to do. They were like, this isn't anywhere for the finish. This is part of me working your neck. Is this pile driver to the outside on this very thin mat.
And I guess you could, it's fair to call it a transition move because from here, they get back onto the apron on the outside of the ring. And then from here, Jun Akiyama exploder suplexes Mitsuharu Misawa off the apron to the floor. And at some point, I don't know if Misawa, head or shoulders catch the apron or he just straight drops to the floor. What could you tell from when you were watching this spot?
I think it just straight drops to the floor, but either way, I wouldn't want to take either of those. They both sound terrible.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't know what a sane human being would want to take those moves. But I mean, this is the one of the 4 pillars. They're all into being masochists and destroying their body.
Dude, I love this spot so much because of the struggle. The first time I saw it, I literally yelled because it looks like Misawa's not going to let it happen. And you think Misawa's not going to let it happen because you think Misawa's a sane person. But then, like, Akiyama just locks it in real quick and hits it. It's amazing.
Well, I mean, like you say you love it. Well, like everyone watching this loves it. You can hear like the crowd in Budokan Hall, like just, getting more and more into the dangerous spots and the dangerous aspects of the matches as it continues. And like these matches, like, moves like this, spots like this pop the crowd. And they scare the crowd, I think, but people like get an adrenaline rush from being frightened and like shocked and things like that. So, I mean, obviously, this kind of abuse that Misawa takes, I think, eventually leads to his death down the line, because like he's taken so much, punishment to his body throughout the years leading up to, when he dies, that, like he can't maintain control of his body, and he can't do the kind of like, exercises like neck exercises that might have prevented his death.
Well, now this spot's sad to me.
No, I don't think it's this particular. Obviously, it's cumulative, but but it's the thing. Like, we're thrilled. Like, as wrestling fans, a lot of us are thrilled by the danger of these kinds of spots, and like that's kind of something that, for good or bad, All Japan Pro Wrestling, Kings Road style, like kind of brought into the mainstream consciousness of wrestling, not just in Japan, but in North America as well, because like you have this era of wrestlers in the 2000s, like in particularly like say Ring of Honor, who want to emulate this and want to drop each other on their heads and necks, and like as far as I can recall, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think anyone's died in recent years from this, like in North America especially, but the danger is always there, Ed.
That's very true. I think, I don't know, man. I'm not the safety police. I'm definitely not one of those type of wrestling fans where I need everything to be super safe. But,
well, I'm saying like it excites people,
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely like I'm an admitted deathmatch ghoul. Like I love deathmatch wrestling too, and it's very much that same thing. Like the adrenaline rush of watching somebody do that shit is pretty amazing.
So, like from this spot, like Akiyama, starts keeps up the assault on Misawa's neck with these kind of backhammer fists and some elbows, and then he hits a DDT before he locks in what kind of looks like Kensuke Sasaki's stranglehold gamma, like this kind of neck hold that he uses his arms, and like he's also grapevining one of Misawa's arms. It looks kind of painful. It's not something that like I don't think it's something like Akiyama does a lot in his matches, but like he's telling the story like, I'm going after this guy's neck. I'm gonna weaken it to the point where I hit one of my big moves, and it's gonna keep him down for the 3 count.
The first time I saw that move, it blew my mind because I was positive that I invented it in like backyard wrestling when I was in like 9th grade.
Oh, you invented stranglehold gamma?
I swore I did because I didn't know any of that stuff. Yeah, the first time I saw that, I was like, "Huh, that's I'm not
sure,
as clever as I thought."
I'm sure there's a lot of 11-year-olds out there who think they invented like maybe the Death Valley Driver or like the super kick, like I'm talking about now in 2020. I'm sure there's like kids out there who've never seen like a super kick. Strange as that might sound, like maybe I invented this thrust kick to the face. Oh my God, I'm going to call it a super kick. It's been around for a while, kid. You're about like 30 years too late to invent it. But anyways, moving on, Misawa, is in this move, but he's thankfully able to reach the ropes. But he was actually just kind of like a rest hold part of the match. It's kind of like slowing the match down a bit to like, I think, to give the fans some time to breathe and to kind of like bring themselves down from that exploder suplex off the apron.
Yeah, or to give Misawa a moment to breathe. And
well, yeah, like it's beneficial for everyone in the building. Misawa, for Akiyama, and for the fans in the audience as well. But Akiyama continues with more strikes to Misawa's neck, and then he goes for a figure 4 head scissors. Again, like I think it's also like he's kind of preparing to reached the crescendo of the match, and he's giving Misawa time to rest a bit as well. From here, Akiyama eventually goes for a sleeper hold, but Misawa drives him backwards into a corner. And I love this part of the match. This is so Misawa drives him into the corner. He breaks a hold, and then he fires off this vicious looking elbow to Akiyama's face, and then follows up with a step up drop kick again to Akiyama's face. And it's like, I think at this point, like maybe Misawa's a little pissed off at the amount of punishment he's been taking in this match from Akiyama.
And this is when Akiyama gets that like slight nosebleed, right?
I think that comes a little bit later. I think before, when I was taking notes, that I thought the same thing, but I think it comes a little bit later. From here, this for Misawa is the spot where he's able to take control of the match, and he locks in his own like signature face lock, a move that has defeated Jumbo Tsuruta. But at this point now it's kind of like a transition hold. But the way he transitions from like his left and right arms, applying the face lock to Akiyama, my God, he really wrenches it in. I imagine Akiyama's got kind of a rash or some kind of like burn afterwards, like when he's out drinking and stuff. He's probably like, oh, give me some ice for my face, man. That like he really did a number on there.
Yeah, Misawa is really like I they're friendly, right? Akiyama and Misawa, because like, yeah, Misawa was really, really cranking at that neck. It's almost like he doesn't like this human.
I mean, he does that to like, think of all the punishment him and Kobashi, put each other through, but they were like the best of friends. So it's wrestling. People, I always feel like the people who hit each other the most in wrestling matches are probably the people who are the closest to each other. Yeah,
it's like the old Benoit Jericho thing, like hit me as hard as you want, as long as it's not in the face.
I mean, like anyone, like like anything and anyone in wrestling, like if you're my best friend is going to hit me the hardest, is going to hit me harder than anyone else. Like, look at, for example, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe. They beat the shit out of each other, but they're like the best of friends.
Yeah, it's like Khali and Tommy Dreamer. They had a lot of respect for each other, so he let Khali really lay it in there.
Khali?
Yeah, the great Khali.
Great Khali? Well, that's amazing. Well, I think Tommy Dreamer's just a masochist, right? So, in general. So, from here, Akiyama reverses his fortunes. He hits a drop kick to a seated Misawa. So Misawa is seated on the top turnbuckle, and Akiyama is able to drop. He's obviously going to try some kind of like flying move from here, but Akiyama is able to catch Misawa with this top drop kick, and this just sends Misawa tumbling back to the floor again. They spend a lot of time on the floor in this match, Ed.
Yeah, they do, which is like pretty shocking for like an All Japan match. You know what I mean?
But I mean, like they don't spend an inordinate amount of time on the outside. They do a move and then they go back into the ring.
Yeah, they don't like spend an unbelievable amount of time there where you have to like you don't. The referee isn't in question. You know what I mean? It's not like a New Japan with red shoes where you just have to accept that like he's just not going to count these people out.
No. I mean, there is a danger that the 20 count could be reached, but it's not something that they want. They want to spend time back in the ring because that's where people can see, the action. And like I think that's kind of a philosophy you see in All Japan is that the action, most of the action has to be in the ring. You can do like spots, you can tell a story outside, like where people are doing dangerous moves and hitting big, spots. And kind of like telling the story. Oh my God, he's got him on the ropes because he padro him on the outside. He did an exploder on the outside. He gave him a brainbuster on the outside, a powerbomb, whatever. But that's like maybe 10% of the match. Like 90% is always going to be in the ring.
That drop kick though, he gets some height on. That's pretty dope. I gave it an 8 out of 10 on the Okada scale.
On the Okada scale is you mean but Akiyama precedes Okada, so it should be Okada's on the Akiyama scale.
But Okada perfected it.
Well, I mean, that's your opinion. So, anyways, you're my guest, so I'm not going to predict your opinion there. From here, Akiyama hits a jumping knee from the apron to Misawa's face and follows up with a knee. So what he does, Akiyama grabs Misawa kind of by the back of his head, and he places a knee to the back of Misawa's neck. And then from the apron, he kind of jumps off the apron and while at the same time keeping contact with Misawa's, like head and neck, and drives Misawa into the guardrail. So like if you watch this match, and like it's available on YouTube, I'm gonna have the link in the show description, that you'll know what I'm talking about. This gotta suck. Like having not just being like, it's one thing being Irish whipped into guardrail. It's another thing having like a guy who's like what, maybe minimum 230 pounds, like driving his body weight along with yours into the guardrail.
Yeah, and they put a lot of trust into these guardrails doing stuff like that, which I don't think I would, because those look really, really flimsy.
The guardrails, really? I tend to think they look pretty solid. Like
I prefer them over like American wrestling guardrails, because they make a better noise, I think, when you get whipped into them. But yeah, they look really shaky. Like I wouldn't expect it to take, if I was Misawa, I wouldn't expect it to take my weight and Akiyama's weight.
Well, I mean, this spot is like kind of the mark where like they're going to start going into what I call the crescendo of the match, where they're going to start hitting their big moves and start going for pinfalls. So because from here, Akiyama hits this beautiful looking cradle tombstone pile driver. So think of like, Jerry Lynn's cradle pile driver, but done in like the tombstone pile driver position, like the Undertaker. From there, he hits a top rope elbow to the back of the neck, and then he goes for his exploder, and he gets a 1 and a 2, but Misawa kicks out. And now this crowd is electric. They are like, they're clapping, they're stomping their feet. I love that stomping feet sound that Japanese crowds do.
Me too, dude. They bit so hard on that first like exploder suplex, like that kick out. Like that crowd just completely comes alive, and that's when I'm just like, holy shit, I miss like wrestling crowds that can like yell.
Oh yeah, I mean, but I love people who are vocal in their excitement for a wrestling match, especially at the peak periods of it. But to me, like, there's nothing like hearing that, the stomping of the feet in a building the size of like Budokan Hall. I just think it's amazing that many people are in sync to do the foot stomping to get that noise.
Is it at Budokan? Is that so? I'm pretty ignorant about Japanese venues. That's the one where like you have to like sit on a pillow, right? Or is that
no? That's Sumo Hall.
Okay,
Sumo Hall is where you have like box seats where you sit on. But for wrestling, you don't get the pillows. They don't do that for wrestling.
No,
only for sumo. Like not for a garbage sport like professional wrestling. So the fans, you just gotta kind of like sit on your ass like on like carpeting for a lot of these shows. People bring like their own cushions. Like I've seen that. Like when I've sat in the box seats at Sumo Hall, like I've just sat on the floor, and it's not the most comfortable thing. I try not to, I tend to prefer sitting up in the upper levels in the proper seats. Those are much more comfortable for me. I know a lot of people who do like the box seats. If it's just you and a friend and you buy out the other two people in the seat, if you pay double the price, it's a much more comfortable experience. But if you're sharing that box with like four, like you and three other people, and two of them might not be like your friends, might be strangers, it's like it's bad enough if, like everyone else is your friend. It's even worse when like there's another group of people who you don't really know, but you have to share the box with them. But anyways, from here, Akiyama goes for a brainbuster on Misawa, but thankfully for Misawa, he escapes that, and then he hits a face kick and follows up with this vicious looking knee drop to Akiyama's face, and then a frog splash, which only gets a 2 on Akiyama. But I think this elbow and this, I think it's the knee drop, Ed. The knee drop, because that knee drop was pretty vicious, is where Akiyama gets the bleeding nose.
That was a pretty brutal knee drop.
Going back a bit, there's a vicious elbow to the back of Akiyama's head, and then Misawa goes for a release German suplex and goes for the pin. But again, only a 2 count at this point. It's not one of Misawa's deadly finishers, so you kind of don't really buy into the fact that it's a release German suplex is going to beat Akiyama in this match. Like I certainly wouldn't think a release German suplex or a regular German suplex is going to defeat like Misawa or Kobashi or Kawada or Taue.
No, the crowd definitely doesn't pop for the kick out like they did with the exploder for Misawa, and I think that's the reason. They know that like this match definitely isn't going to end with a bridging German suplex.
No. But, from this point, Misawa does hit the Tiger Driver, and he gets a 1, a 2, but Akiyama kicks out, and the crowd does kind of bite into that because, the Tiger Driver doesn't necessarily beat Kawada or Kobashi anymore, but, Akiyama hasn't beat Misawa yet, so maybe it will beat him, but no, it doesn't keep Akiyama down for this match. Misawa goes for a second Tiger Driver, hits it, but again, Akiyama kicks out at 2, and now the crowd's thinking, oh my god, maybe Akiyama has a chance, and their support for Akiyama is getting a little louder for each time that Misawa goes for a pinfall on him.
Yeah, this is definitely the crescendo, the crowd's going along with it. Everyone's peaking all at the same time, and this is just perfect professional wrestling.
Oh, it's just, yeah, it's like you're biting in. I remember the first time I ever watched this match, and I was just like, oh my god, is this Akiyama's time? Is this Akiyama's time? From here, in this match, Misawa hits a rolling elbow, but Akiyama fires back with, his signature move is the exploder suplex. He hits a couple of them to Misawa. This sequence takes a toll on both guys. And they both kind of try to get up, but they fall back down. And the crowd is just absolutely going fucking apeshit for this because they're just they don't know who's going to win, Ed. And that's when professional wrestling is at a point where you don't know who's going to win, and you want both guys to win. It's going to be awesome if either one of them wins. Then that's professional wrestling at its best, in my opinion.
Yeah, can you imagine having it be Vader and Kobashi backstage and knowing you have to follow this?
Well, I mean, I would think that Kobashi has the confidence that he can follow it. And Vader, I think, had a very healthy ego. He's yeah, we'll do it. I mean, it's not I don't remember that match exactly, but I think usually Kobashi and Vader had excellent chemistry and they had good matches. So I would assume that they don't think, we'll just go beat the shit out of each other and it'll be just as good as this. But I think, for Kobashi, he wants Akiyama to have this match. Him and Misawa look at Akiyama and think he's going to be the guy to carry this company. We can take it a little bit easier when he's the ace of the company. So, I think for Kobashi, he's I don't need to have a better match than this. I'm going to have as best match as I can. But if Akiyama has a better match than me, awesome. Because that's what the company overall needs.
Yeah, he's got a new dude to work with. It's at his level now.
Exactly. So I don't understand people who want to keep other people down in wrestling. I understand why it happens, but to me, it's the more people who are on your level, the more money you can make drawing with them. You know what I mean?
Very true.
From here back to the match, there's Akiyama hits a running knee to the side of Misawa's head. Just a beautiful looking move. And he goes for another exploder, but again, 1, 2, Misawa kicks out, and it's this crowd is just biting on every false finish in this match. From here, Akiyama hits a vertical drop brainbuster, but can't keep Misawa down. So Akiyama knows it's time. It's time to bust out the coup de grace. It's time to bust out the big gun, his super move, the Exploder 98. And I don't know about you, Ed. Are you a fan of wrestling video games? Are you a fan of virtual pro wrestling too?
Absolutely, yes.
So this is probably and maybe the Tiger Driver 91 are my favorite finishers to hit on people in that game.
Oh yeah, I because they do the crumple down. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so I think Misawa does the crumple down as well. So with the Exploder 98, Akiyama drops Misawa straight onto his head. And here, there's a 1, there's a 2, and there is finally a 3. Jun Akiyama has finally beaten Mitsuharu Misawa with his wrist clutch Exploder suplex in 23 minutes and 40 seconds. And Ed, what did you think about the finish of this match?
It's literally perfect. The closing sequence to this match is as close to perfect professional wrestling as you can get. The crowd's with everything happening. They Misawa and Akiyama have those people. They're absolutely biting on everything. And then, yeah, that wow. Just right on his head. Right on his fucking head.
Yeah, it's Pretty amazing. Misawa, hey, just Exploder 98, drop me on head. No problem. I've been doing it for like years now. The people with the Tiger Driver 91. What do you rate matches, Ed?
I do rate matches.
So do you use the 5-star scale?
Yeah.
What did you give this match?
4 3/4.
4 3/4. So I was a little bit lower. I gave it 4.25. I do think, the pacing of the match, it's fine to slow it down, but I just thought there were maybe, one too many, rest hold spots in this match, but still awesome. And the finishes, chef's kiss for that finish. And right after Misawa gets the win, it's acknowledged. He is so ecstatic. He has finally beaten Mitsuharu Misawa. He knows his star is on the rise. He knows that, down the line, he's gonna beat Kawada. He's gonna beat Taue if he hasn't already. He's gonna beat Kobashi, and he's probably gonna become the Triple Crown champion. But life takes a detour for that plan, and he would leave to go to Pro Wrestling Noah with everyone else, but he does beat Misawa to become the GHC heavyweight champion in Pro Wrestling Noah, and I don't know, it's kind of weird because I don't think Akiyama ever reached the ace spot even in Pro Wrestling Noah when he had the title. I think the greatest ace in all Japan was in Pro Wrestling Noah was always Kenta Kobashi.
Yeah, he goes to a completely different company with these people, and still, I think they even tried, harder in Noah to get Akiyama from out of their shadow, and it's really hard to do when the other two people are Mitsuharu Misawa and Kenta Kobashi.
Yeah, I mean, if people want to see the follow-up in Noah of this particular match, this particular rivalry between Akiyama and Misawa, definitely check out the July 27th, 2001 match, which, roughly a year later. And that's where, Akiyama defeats Misawa to become the GHC heavyweight champion. And I got to think, if the Exodus didn't happen, that would have been for the Triple Crown. That maybe that would have been Misawa finally saying, okay, I don't have to be the Triple Crown or the ace of the company. It's going to be Jun Akiyama. And I think if the Exodus didn't happen, if everyone stayed in All Japan, that Misawa would have been more likely to phase himself down without feeling the pressure of lower attendance if he's not on top, because the problem with Noah, as great as it was, is is trying to establish a new company, and he feels like he has to, him and Kobashi are the faces, are the superstars of Noah. So we have to, stay on top, and there's a lot of pressure there. But I think it would have been less pressure on either of them if they had stayed with All Japan Pro Wrestling. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening, because Noah, that brand, that company definitely was on Misawa and Kobashi's shoulders, but All Japan has more of a history behind it and more of a drawing power behind that name. So yeah, you could do things like put Akiyama on top and phase yourself down, because All Japan as a company is a bigger draw.
So one thing I thought was interesting is that if you look at kind of the results on Cage Match after this particular match, that Akiyama actually stops teaming with Kenta Kobashi. Burning is pretty much quietly dissolved, and Akiyama starts teaming with Manakea Mossman. Again, the guy who would later become Taiokeya. And you can see Akiyama is going to be the senpai, the senior of this team, and that Kea is going to be his it's Akiyama is going to be Kobashi, Akiyama is going to be Misawa, and now Kea is going to be the Akiyama to them, to Akiyama. He's going to be the Taue to Akiyama's Kawada. He's not necessarily going to be eating the pins all the time, but he's going to be kind of the second to Akiyama. He's going to be Akiyama's 1A, and then Taiokeya is going to be 2A. You know what I mean?
Yeah, now that you made Akiyama, you can use Akiyama to help other people out.
Yeah, so Mossman, Taiokeya is going to be the guy that gets the rub from teaming with Akiyama, and I do think the plan was to I'm a big fan of Taiokeya. I think he had so much potential in 1999, 2000. he was going to get there, I think, and I think he had a nice career in post Exodus All Japan pro wrestling. I think him and Akiyama had really good chemistry for the short time that they were teaming. But like I said earlier on, like is Akiyama, Mossman, Omori, Takayama were the guys that I think Misawa was looking at to really join the main event scene in All Japan Pro Wrestling, and he would give these guys like Omori and Takayama a kind of a big push, especially Takayama. Takayama became like a superstar, I would say, mainly because of his involvement in legit MMA and just getting the shit beat out of him by Don Fry and a bunch of other people. But still, like, I mean, this guy became a star in professional wrestling in the 2000s.
Yo, I've shown people Fry and Takayama that aren't like wrestling fans or MMA fans at all, and every time they're really horrified by it.
Yeah, I don't enjoy. Like, I remember watching it like a couple of times when right after it happened, and I'm just like now I probably like think, yeah, because like it took its toll on Takayama. I remember watching like I think I had a New Japan show on DVD that I bought from a tape trader, and like part of that tape had like this kind of mini documentary following Yoshihiro Takayama between shows. And like he gets to his hotel room and like the camera crew's right there and they're just watching him unpack all his pills that he has to take. It's just all these like different kinds of painkillers that he's measuring out. Like, oh, I have to take 2 of these right now. This is for tomorrow. And it's just really sad. Like there's one thing about being, what did you say earlier? The safety police?
Yeah.
But there's another thing about like just being a compassionate human being. Like at the end of the day, these people are human beings. It's one thing to see them take big moves, but it's another thing to watch someone in their hotel room, like dealing with the effects of like that wrestling has taken on him, like or real fighting has taken on him. Like you see, like he's basically got a pharmacy like laid out on his like in his hotel room, like of what he has to take to deal with the pain that he's in.
God, you gotta think like, how much money was he making to be able like to put up with that? You know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, like he was making shitload of money because, like,
yeah,
he was in demand. He was like like didn't matter. Like he was a freelancer, primarily working for Noah. Like New Japan was like, "Hey, you want to work for us? Okay." He went there, and then he would do MMA where he would just be a tomato can, right? Like he's the one getting he's getting beat, but like, hey, he's a star. He's a star because he gets beat up by legit fighters, and there you go. Like that made Takayama, like he's really, like if you think about it, he's kind of like the Mick Foley of Japan, right? Like you obviously referenced Mick Foley earlier as the guy who got you into professional wrestling as a fan. Takayama, like is kind of like the Mick Foley. Like he was more well known for getting beat up rather than being a winner, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's definitely the Mick Foley story. Is like how good of an ass kicking he could take.
So like Takayama is like the same way, but anyways, it's kind of on a tangent here. But the point being, like Akiyama, Mossman, Omori, Takayama were probably going to get elevated in the next 2 to 3 years in All Japan Pro Wrestling if things didn't go the way they did. But they went the way they did, and that didn't happen. And then we have the Exodus, several months down the line. Overall, like what are your thoughts about that split?
I think it was definitely better for everybody. Nah, never mind. All Japan, pretty much. It wasn't. It was definitely better for Misawa and like Kobashi and everybody that left. I was trying to think when you said like Taiokeya benefited from like sticking around, right? Who else like Kawada and Taiokeya, and who else do you think like?
Initially, like Johnny Smith got a push as Taiokeya's tag team partner. They won the tag team titles, but it's no one's really been it. Like Tenryu, he comes back. He gets the Triple Crown because Kawada is positioned to do all the interpromotional stuff with New Japan Pro Wrestling. So like I would hope from a financial standpoint that Kawada gets a lot of money from doing like the matches with Kensuke Sasaki in the Tokyo Dome on New Japan cards, and but like Tenryu becomes the booker of the company, and he's placed as the Triple Crown champion because he's not going to do any jobs to like or have any draws with guys from New Japan. So it's, he's the safe bet. But it doesn't take off until Keiji Muto comes into the company and pretty much, like all the things that Muto did, like that Mrs. Baba allowed him to do, baffle my mind, because it's like, if you let Misawa, Pro Wrestling Noah isn't that different from what All Japan Pro Wrestling is, Yeah. It just had a better junior division. That's the only difference, is that you had actually good junior heavyweight talents in the company, and that's the thing that sets Noah apart from the previous, All Japan Pro Wrestling. But I don't understand what Mr. Baba thought Misawa was going to do that was going to change so much. Obviously, actually, a lot of it had to do with the behind the scenes stuff, giving people, making them actually employees, treating the wrestlers, giving them health benefits, better ones that they already had. Those are the kind of things that Mrs. Baba was not for, that Misawa wanted to do. So but creatively, I don't think there was really that much that he did in Noah that was very different from the way Baba booked All Japan.
Nah, pretty much just the green ring and that cool entrance set with fire in the Tokyo Dome.
There you go. Yeah, the fire is always a good thing in the Tokyo Dome. Not so much in a smaller building, but in the big building like Tokyo Dome, no problem. Well, let's wrap things up at this point. I think we've exhausted the points that we can talk about with Akiyama Misawa. You went 4 3/4. I went 4 1/4 on this, but it's a difference of a quarter, right? So we're not far off in how we think about this match. Anything to plug, Ed?
Yeah,
keep in mind this is not coming out till January.
Perfect. Okay, so check out Pod Van Dam. By the time this comes out, we will be dropping episodes on Tuesdays. Unless you're part of our Patreon, it's patreon.com/podvandam. $5, you can get the show a day early. And then I do a couple non-wrestling podcasts. I do this one called Super Chantastic that goes over the history of internet personality Chris Chan. And I'm doing some writing for Voices of Wrestling, doing pro wrestling heat up reviews. So
awesome! That's great. And of course, our good friends Rich and Joe over at Pro Wrestling, voicesofwrestling.com are they're always doing wonderful things over at that site, and a big fan of them as well. Support Voices of Wrestling, support Pod Van Dam, Patreon as well. I gotta plug the next episode of the Long and Winding Road here, Ed. Episode 8 will be our next biography show. It will be a biography episode on Toshiaki Kawada and my guests. I've already lined up the guests for that. It will be Dylan Fox from the Eastern Lariat, one of the biggest Kawada fans that I know. So he and I will be laying down maybe a 2-hour show, 2-hour plus show, maybe, all about the man in the black and the yellow, Toshiaki Kawada. So look out for that. That's dropping in February of 2021. And already 2021 maybe is looking better than 2020 if we're going to have me and Dylan talking about one Toshiaki Kawada.
Yeah, look, I can't wait to listen to that. Kawada and Taue are admittedly my blind spots in All Japan. So stoked for that.
I hope people get to learn a lot. I'm going to do my research. I know Dylan's already digging into his knowledge about Kawada. So look out for that. And Ed, I want to thank you for joining me here on the Long and Winding Road. Thank you for picking this match. It's a match that I really enjoyed watching again and taking notes for and talking with you about. And I want to thank all the listeners for saying nice things about the episodes that have come out already and supporting the show on social media. And until next time, I will say goodbye.